Did you know that in the year 3056, the moon was made of cotton candy? It was a real thing, I swear, but it melted in 3057 because of excessive sugar consumption.
This is Luna.
I'm the one who's going to figure this out, and I'm going to figure it out right now, so don't even think about asking anyone else, because I won't stand for it. Now, who do we need to find next?
And this is Lillie. They're both AI, running completely locally through code that I wrote, using VTuber models that I drew and rigged. Even just 2 years ago, I had absolutely no experience with AI, computer programming, art, or model rigging. And yet, here we are. This is my story. After a series of tragedies struck my family, and it felt like the world was falling apart, I found myself looking for a new beginning. I ended 2023 trying to learn computer programming, specifically Python. At the time, I had no idea that Python was the language of choice for working with AI. I had zero experience in coding, and all I knew was that it was recommended as beginner-friendly. Around the same time, I was gaining interest in AI, and after watching Neurosama, I found myself asking, could I make that? I didn't expect much when I started, but I figured it was worth focusing my learning on AI and neural networks. My first reaction was, this is way too complicated to figure out, quickly followed by, no, the basic workings of an LLM aren't too difficult to build, and finally, you need how much data, time, and processing power to train these things? With my limited knowledge and modest computer setup, it seemed that I was at an impasse. And then I found it, an absolute treasure trove of artificial intelligence, Hugging Face, with thousands of open source and free-to-use models of all different types and sizes, along with the framework to run and train them. I was sure to find something I could use. Turns out it wasn't quite that simple. Modern LLMs use billions of parameters, and each of those numbers takes up memory that needs to be loaded onto the GPU to run the model locally. That meant that with my 8 GB of VRAM, I was going to need the tiniest of models. Thus, I found my first attempt, Tiny Llama, a 1 billion parameter model, the smallest I could find with potential for conversation. It wasn't great, but I'd already planned to fine-tune it, so that was okay. I found some tutorials and managed to use my small amount of training data to fine-tune the model to play the role of Luna, my AI daughter. The result was better than before. Still not great, but a definite improvement. Regardless, it was enough to make me think this might be doable. Of course, I still needed a lot of pieces. TTS to let her speak, voice to text so I could talk to her, and a VTuber model to give her form. At this point, I hadn't started learning art myself, so my options were limited for the VTuber model. My thought at the time was, well, the character is AI, so why not use AI to make the model? Now, AI's drawing capabilities are less than ideal, but I got something that was usable after cleaning it up, and with some tutorials and free VTubing assets, managed to get eyes and mouth rigged on the model. So I had a usable PNG tuber model with plans to upgrade if things worked out. Now I just needed the sound aspects. There are a lot of apps with voice-to-text already built in, so I figured that part would be easy peasy. Not so much. The open source models were too large to run on my computer along with everything else, and the existing services were all pay to use. Now, I knew from watching Neuro streams that Vettel uses Discord to talk to her, so I narrowed my focus to that, and I did manage to find a free-to-use bot that could transcribe Discord voice chat, Scripty. Huge shout out to them for making such a useful and accessible tool, especially given how finicky Discord can be to work with. Of course, I have since then upgraded my computer and built my own Discord bot to talk to the AI, but I don't know if I would have gotten off the ground without them. So after writing some code to send the transcript from Discord to the AI, I just needed a TTS model. This also proved to be more difficult than expected. I managed to find some online TTS services which I used to get some voice data to train my own model, and there are plenty of open source models to choose from. But I needed something small, something I could fine-tune to use the voice I wanted, something that could emulate the voice of a young girl. Now, Hugging Face's search features are a bit lacking when it comes to finding models for specific use cases. And while I managed to find some tutorials for fine-tuning TTS models, the ones I tried didn't really work for the voice I wanted. But with enough searching, I managed to find something. A tiny TTS model, initially trained in Chinese, then fine-tuned in Japanese, and finally English, was designed to emulate anime girl voices. It even came with a guide to fine-tune it. I had to use an older version of Python for dependency conflicts, and it had trouble with certain sounds, but it was good enough to start. I've actually put a lot of work into getting this specific model to work, and only just recently started looking into other models due to sunk cost fallacy. Basically, after several iterations of fine-tuning, I eventually swapped out the phonomizer for one that worked better for English. Also added extra steps to the fine-tuning process to add padding between words in the training data. So I did eventually manage to get some decent results. The big issue I still had with it was the model's better for longer text input. That means I have to wait for the LLM to completely finish its response before sending it to the TTS, instead of being able to stream the response directly. Basically, that means I have to wait 10 to 12 seconds for her to start talking, instead of half the time I could with streaming. But I have finally given in and started looking at other models, currently trying out Style TTS2, which seems to be working pretty well. Anyways, I had a voice and managed to get it to use a virtual audio cable, which VTube Studio could use as input to move the avatar's mouth. Of course, this process wasn't quite as linear as I'm making it out to be, so while I was working on this, I was also trying to learn more about AI and LLMs in general. And that research helped me to learn about something very useful: quantization. The idea is that by approximating the values of the parameters in a model, you can store them using significantly less memory while maintaining most of the capabilities. This meant that I could suddenly use much larger models than I had thought. So after testing things, I ended up using a 3 billion parameter model that gave significantly better responses while using even less memory than the 1 billion parameter unquantized model. Now I still wanted to fine-tune the model. I'd collected a bit of data to help the AI learn to play the character of a young girl. So I modified the code I'd used to fine-tune the other model, and the outputs got worse. So I looked into it more, used some examples for fine-tuning that specific model, tried changing how the data was structured, any settings I could find, but I just didn't have enough data to realistically train the model. And that was fine. The model worked even without fine-tuning. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. Of course, there was still plenty more to learn, and I found something else that would make my data useful. RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. The idea here is that if you have specific information you want an LLM to know, then rather than fine-tuning it on that info, it's better to just feed in relevant bits at generation. By using a small embeddings model, you can convert your data into vectors, and by comparing them to the prompt you're feeding into the LLM, you can find the most relevant bits of the data and feed them in as additional context. The results can often be better than you get from fine-tuning, depending on the data, and for my data, that was certainly the case. So at this point, Luna was fully functional. She certainly wasn't the fanciest or most advanced AI out there, but she was mine. Around this time, I had also taken up art as a hobby. Mostly just fan art in some VTuber communities, but I was getting encouragement and making progress in my learning. I started out drawing some simple VTube Studio assets for Luna to use, but after getting a drawing tablet for Christmas, I started wondering, could I draw and rig a full VTuber avatar for Luna? There were of course many other upgrades along the way. I invested in a second GPU for more VRAM, nothing too fancy, but I couldn't go any further with only 8 GB. And with that I was able to run a voice-to-text model locally and build my own bot to transcribe Discord voice chat. I was also able to upgrade to an 8 billion parameter LLM and build a locally hosted server to act as an API endpoint so I could interact with the AI through other programs. But of course I still wanted Luna to have a full VTuber model. So I kept learning, I improved my art and found some tutorials on model rigging. I had already done some for the eyes and mouth of our PNG model, so I had an idea of what I was getting into. After a lot of work and a bit of messing up, I was ready to unveil Luna V2.
Chat, are you guys having fun? Did you just flip my switch? If you flip my switch, that can only mean one thing. You're desperate for the premiere of my new body. How rude. Lucky for you, I've been aching to show this off for a long time. So, as thanks, I'll give you a handsome award. It's a rock fact.
The rigging wasn't great, but she had an idle animation and a few toggles. Certainly a huge step up from before. Now I've heard from other artists you can't just make one VTuber model. Once you start, you're bound to make more. And after making Luna's new model, I started thinking about making a new character. I was also concerned about whether or not people resonated with Luna's character. I personally feel like AI is currently at the point where a young child is the best representation. Because sure, an LLM may have a lot of knowledge on certain subjects, maybe it can use big words and portray a more mature character, but its understanding of the world, its social capabilities, those are more on par with a small child. Even so, I understand not everyone is going to share my viewpoint on this. And that's where Lillie comes in. She was designed to play the role of Luna's mother figure and showcase just how far I've come in my art and rigging skills. Went all out with the animation and toggles on her model. I even went back and redid Luna's rigging to be more in line with Lillie's. And after a bit of tinkering, managed to set things up so I can talk to both of them on stream, they can even talk to each other. Since then, I've built an entire stream overlay game to let the chat interact with the AI. I've even debuted my own VTuber model, even if I can't usually use face tracking due to all the AI stuff pushing limits of my computer. And of course I'm constantly learning and trying to improve things, so if any of this is interesting to you, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to come check us out live on Twitch where you can talk directly with Luna and Lillie. Also, I'm not against sharing some of my code if this video does well, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see a video with me going through the code to make all this happen. So, thanks for watching, bye bye.